there is no sound. No wind in the trees, because there are no trees. No bird calls, because birds do not exist yet and will not exist for another 100 million years. No buzzing of insects in the underbrush, because the underbrush is gone, and most of the insects are gone with it. The year is approximately 251 million years ago. The place is everywhere. You are standing on the shore of a dead ocean. The water is warm, too warm, nearly 40 degrees Celsius in the shallows. It smells wrong. Sulfur and rot and something else, something chemical, something that burns the back of your throat. The waves lap against black rock, and nothing lives in them. No fish, no shells, no darting shadows beneath the surface. The reefs that once stretched for thousands of kilometers are white and silent, their architects extinct, their structures crumbling into sand. Behind you, the land rises in brown and grey folds toward a horizon that shimmers with heat, no green, anywhere. The forests that covered Pangaea are stumps and ash and memory. The ferns, the seed plants, the great coal swamps of the Carboniferous, all of it is gone. The soil itself is dying, washing into rivers that carry nothing but sediment to a sea that cannot use it. This is the morning after the end of the world. The Permian Triassic extinction event, the Great Dying, has just ended. It killed approximately 95% of all marine species. It killed 70% of all land vertebrates. It killed most insects, which is remarkable, because insects survive almost everything. It killed the forests and the reefs and the food webs that connected them. It was the closest life on Earth has ever come to total annihilation. The cause was fire, not one fire, but thousands, erupting from a wound in the Earth's crust that we now call the Siberian Traps. For roughly 1 million years, lava poured across an area the size of Western Europe. The eruptions released carbon dioxide, methane, and sulfur compounds into the atmosphere in quantities that are difficult to comprehend. The planet warmed, the oceans acidified, oxygen levels dropped. The ozone layer thinned, bathing the land in ultraviolet radiation. Life did not die all at once. It died in waves, over tens of thousands of years, each wave more punishing than the last. Species that survived the initial warming succumbed to the acid rain. Those that withstood the rain suffocated as oxygen grew scarce, and those that survived the suffocation starved as their food vanished. The dying fed on itself, unraveling the web of life until only scattered threads remained. And now it is over. The volcanoes are quieting. The atmosphere is beginning to stabilize. The oceans are still toxic, still hot, still largely empty, but they are no longer getting worse. The worst mass extinction in Earth's history has run its course. What remains? Bacteria, fungi, a handful of land plants clinging to riverbanks and coastal margins, some brachiopods and mollusks in the deep ocean where conditions were slightly less lethal, a few species of fish, a scattering of amphibians hiding in whatever pools of water they can find, and on the land, walking through the ash and the silence, a few survivors, therapsids, the mammal-like reptiles that dominated the Permian, archosaurs, the ancestors of crocodiles, dinosaurs, and birds. Small, traumatized populations of creatures that happen to be in the right place, with the right physiology, at the right time. They do not know they are survivors. They do not know the world they remember is gone forever. They only know that food is scarce, the sun is too bright, the water tastes strange, and the herds they used to see are simply gone. The Triassic Period is beginning. It will last for 50 million years. It will see the recovery of the forests and the reefs. It will see the rise of the dinosaurs, the first mammals, the first pterosaurs. It will see life rebuild itself from nearly nothing into something new, strange, and magnificent. But not yet. For now, there is only the silence, the empty ocean, the brown hills under a hazy sky. The Triassic begins not with a bang, but with a long, slow exhale. The Earth is exhausted. The great experiment of the Paleozoic is over, and no one knows what comes next. You are standing at the beginning of a new world. It does not feel like a beginning. It feels like an ending that forgot to finish. The silence is immense. The sun rises over Pangaea, and there is no one to see it, no one to name it, no one to understand what has been lost. But somewhere, in a riverbed, or a coastal swamp, or a crack in the dying rock, something is breathing, something is eating, something is laying eggs. Life is still here, broken, diminished, traumatized, but here. And in the silence of the early Triassic, that is enough. That is the seed from which the next 50 million years will grow. Now, pull back. Step away from the shoreline, away from the dead water and the ash until the details blur. Rise above the brown hills, higher still until the scars of the extinction become patterns, rivers like thin veins, coasts like torn edges, deserts like open wounds. From far enough away, the whole planet starts to look unfamiliar. From space, the Earth looks wrong. The blue marble you know, scattered continents, vast oceans, ice caps at the poles, does not exist yet. Instead, there is one landmass, one enormous C-shaped continent stretching from pole to pole, surrounded by a single global ocean called Panthalassa. The continents have not yet begun their slow drift toward their modern positions. They are locked together, fused into a supercontinent that covers nearly a third of the planet's surface. This is Pangaea. The name means all lands in Greek, and for once, the name is not an exaggeration. If you could walk from the northern edge of Pangaea to the southern edge, it would take you across what will become Siberia, Europe, North America, Africa, South America, Antarctica, and Australia. You would cross mountain ranges that no longer exist, rivers that have not yet carved their valleys, coastlines that will be torn apart and reassembled over the next 250 million years. The journey would cover more than 15,000 kilometers. No human will ever make it because humans will not exist for another 250 million years. The continent is empty of anything that could appreciate its scale. The shape of Pangaea determines everything about Triassic life. Consider the interior. Thousands of kilometers from the nearest ocean, cut off from moisture by mountain ranges and sheer distance. The heart of Pangaea is a desert beyond anything the modern world has seen. Temperatures swing between extremes, scorching days, freezing nights. Rainfall is measured not in centimeters per year but in centimeters per decade. The sand is red with iron oxide, the same compound that colors Mars. Nothing grows here, nothing can. This is not the Sahara. The Sahara has oases, has edges, has relief from the heat in the form of Mediterranean breezes and Atlantic moisture. The interior of Pangaea has none of these. It is a hypercontinental desert, a zone of permanent drought that covers an area larger than modern Africa. The few creatures that wander into it do not wander out. The coasts are different. Where Pangaea meets Panthalassa, moisture from the global ocean creates narrow bands of habitability. Rivers flow down from the interior, carrying sediment and creating deltas where life can take hold. The monsoons, seasonal wind reversals driven by the differential heating of land and sea, bring rain to some coastal regions, enough to support forests of conifers and seed ferns. The Tethys Sea cuts into the eastern edge of Pangaea like a wedge driven between what will become Europe and Africa above, and India and Antarctica below. This shallow, warm sea is a refuge. Coral reefs are beginning to rebuild along its margins. Fish are diversifying in its waters. Marine reptiles, the first generation of land animals returning to the sea, are starting to appear along its coasts. The geography creates a world of extremes, wet coasts and dry interiors, tropical heat at the equator and ice at the poles, monsoon forests within sight of lifeless desert. The creatures of the Triassic do not spread evenly across the supercontinent. They cluster where the water is, and they avoid the rest. This clustering has consequences. When all the habitable land is concentrated along coastlines and river valleys, competition intensifies. Species that might have spread into separate territories on a fragmented world are forced to coexist on a connected one. Predators encounter prey more often. Herbivores compete for the same limited vegetation. Evolution accelerates because the pressure never lets up. The single landmass also means that successful species can spread far and wide. A creature that evolves in what will become Brazil can walk over generations to what will become Germany. There are no ocean barriers to stop it. The fossil record of the Triassic reflects this. The same species appearing on multiple continents, the same body plans repeated across thousands of kilometers. Pangaea is a highway, and life is learning to use it. The rivers are the arteries of this world. They carry water from the rare mountain ranges where rain still falls. They carry nutrients from the interior, washing minerals into the coastal zones where plants can use them. They carry animals too, the amphibians that cannot stray far from water, the small reptiles that hunt along their banks, the fish that are beginning to diversify after the extinction nearly wiped them out. The largest river system drains what will become Central Europe, flowing south into the Tethys. Along its length, forests of Voltsia conifers provide shade and food and shelter. Ferns grow in the understory. Insects are returning, beetles, flies, the first primitive grasshoppers. The sound of running water is one of the few sounds in the early Triassic that would be familiar to your ears. Away from the rivers, the land is harsh. The soil is thin, baked hard by the sun, stripped of nutrients by millions of years of erosion. The plants that survive here are tough, drought-adapted, slow-growing. They hoard water in thick stems and waxy leaves. They wait for the rare rains and grow in bursts, then go dormant again. The animals that live in these marginal zones are survivors. They can go long periods without water. They can tolerate heat that would kill most modern reptiles. They are small because small bodies require less food and water. They are not impressive. They are not dominant. They are simply alive, which in the early Triassic is achievement enough. Pangaea will not last forever. Already, deep beneath the surface, the forces that will tear it apart are building. The mantle is convecting, dragging the crust in different directions. Rifts are forming, cracks that will widen into seas, that will push continents apart, that will create the Atlantic Ocean and separate South America from Africa and send India drifting north toward its collision with Asia. But that is hundreds of millions of years in the future. For now, Pangaea holds. The supercontinent dominates the globe, shapes the climate, determines where life can exist and where it cannot. The survivors of the Great Dying are learning to navigate this world. They are learning where the water flows, where the food grows, where the shade falls. They are mapping Pangaea with their bodies, generation by generation, death by death, birth by birth. The continent is vast. The resources are scarce. The competition is fierce. And somewhere in the margins, in the river valleys and the coastal forests, something is changing. The old rulers of the Permian are weakened. New creatures are emerging from the shadows. The empty niches left by the extinction are beginning to fill. The supercontinent is a crucible. What emerges from it will reshape the world. But the pressure is not only on the animals, it is on the ground beneath them. On the thin skin of soil that has to relearn how to hold life. Because before you can rebuild an ecosystem, you have to rebuild the machinery that feeds it. Roots, rot, nutrients, the slow chemistry of growth. And for a long time, that machinery simply doesn't work. For 10 million years, no coal formed anywhere on Earth. This is one of the strangest facts in the geological record. Coal requires forests, vast swampy forests where dead trees accumulate faster than they can decompose, where layers of organic matter pile up and compress over millions of years into black, carbon-rich rock. The Carboniferous period, which ended just before the Permian, was named for its coal. Immense deposits formed across the ancient tropics, the buried remains of forests so dense and so productive that they changed the composition of the atmosphere. Then the Great Dying came, and the forests vanished. The trees did not simply die, they were erased. The spore-bearing plants of the Paleozoic, the giant club mosses, the tree ferns, the seed ferns, were devastated by the extinction. The ecosystems that supported them collapsed. The mycorrhizal networks in the soil, the insects that pollinated them, the animals that dispersed their seeds, all of it was disrupted beyond recovery. The forests did not thin, they disappeared. And into the emptiness came the fungi. The early Triassic is sometimes called the Fungal Spike. Examine the rocks from this period and you find something unexpected: enormous quantities of fungal spores. Not the background level that appears in most geological samples, but a spike, a sudden, dramatic increase that dwarfs everything before or after. The fungi were thriving. They had inherited the earth. This makes sense in a terrible way. Fungi are decomposers. They break down dead organic matter, fallen trees, rotting leaves, animal carcasses. In a normal ecosystem, fungi are part of a cycle. Plants grow, plants die. Fungi decompose the dead plants. Nutrients return to the soil, new plants grow. The cycle continues. The Great Dying broke the cycle. Suddenly, there were no new plants growing. The forests were dead, but the fungi were still alive, still hungry, still doing what fungi do. They consumed the dead wood. They consumed the fallen leaves. They consumed the organic matter in the soil itself. With no new growth to replace what was lost, the fungi ate through the accumulated biomass of the Permian like fire through dry grass. The result was a world without forests and without the conditions to make forests. The soil was depleted. The nutrients were gone. The complex communities of microorganisms that healthy forests depend on had been disrupted. Even if tree seeds had survived, even if spores had drifted into habitable zones, the ground was not ready to receive them. The fungi had sterilized it. This is the coal gap. For roughly 10 million years, from the end of the Permian to the middle of the early Triassic, almost no coal deposits formed anywhere in the world. The swamps did not exist. The trees did not exist. The organic productivity that coal requires simply was not there. The absence tells a story. It tells us that the recovery from the Great Dying was not just slow. It was fundamentally different from any recovery before or since. Previous mass extinctions had damaged the forests. This one removed them entirely. Previous recoveries had taken millions of years. This one took tens of millions, and when the forests finally returned, they were not the same forests that had existed before. The early Triassic was a world dominated by small plants. Lycopsids, the diminished descendants of the giant club mosses, grew in low, scrubby stands along riverbanks. Ferns colonized disturbed ground, their spores drifting on the wind, their fronds unfurling wherever moisture allowed. Conifers began to spread, their tough, needle-like leaves adapted to drought, their seeds protected in cones that could wait years for the right conditions. The recovery happened in stages. Pioneer species came first. The opportunists, the generalists, the plants that could grow in poor soil and tolerate harsh conditions. They stabilized the ground. They added organic matter. They created shade and shelter for more demanding species. Slowly, over millions of years, the complexity returned. By the Middle Triassic, something like forests existed again. Conifers grew tall along the coasts of Pangaea. Seed ferns spread their broad fronds in the understory. The Tethys coastline became green, then dense, then productive enough to support large herbivores and the predators that hunted them. The coal gap closed. New deposits began to form, not as extensive as the Carboniferous, but present, measurable, real. The cycle had restarted. Plants grew, plants died, organic matter accumulated, and the slow process of coal formation resumed. The fungi retreated to their normal role. They were still there, still decomposing, still essential to the ecosystem, but they were no longer dominant. The spike had passed. The world belonged to the plants again. Something had changed, though. The forests of the Triassic were not the forests of the Permian. The giant club mosses were gone forever. The tree ferns were diminished. The conifers, which had been marginal players in the Permian, were now dominant. The composition of the world's vegetation had shifted, and it would never shift back. The coal gap is a scar. It marks the depth of the wound that the great dying inflicted on the biosphere. It measures not just how many species died, but how completely the systems that supported them were destroyed. It shows us that extinction is not just about individual creatures. It is about networks, relationships, dependencies that take millions of years to build and can be torn apart in thousands. The fungi remember in their way. Their spores are still there in the rock, preserved for 250 million years. They are a record of a world without forests, a world where decomposition outpaced growth, a world where the balance had tipped so far that it took 10 million years to tip back. The silence of the early Triassic was not just the silence of missing animals, it was the silence of missing trees, missing shade, missing the rustle of leaves in the wind. The world was brown and bare and waiting for the green to return. And slowly, painfully, one root at a time, it did. But the return was uneven, patchy. A few riverbanks first, a few coastal margins, a few places where moisture lingered long enough for life to try again. And in those narrow strips of survivable land, something else happened. When the world is emptied, the winners are not always the strong. Sometimes they are simply the ones that can endure the longest, the ones that can eat almost anything, sleep almost anywhere, and keep going when everything else stops. Of all the creatures that walked through the aftermath of the Great Dying, one stands above the rest. Not because it was the largest, or the fiercest, or the most intelligent. It stands above the rest because it was everywhere. Lystrosaurus. The name means shovel lizard, a reference to its broad, flat skull, and the way it probably rooted in the ground for food. It was not a lizard at all. It was a synapsid, a member of the group that would eventually give rise to mammals. It was about the size of a pig, with a barrel-shaped body, stumpy legs, and a face dominated by two downward curving tusks. It was not beautiful. It was not impressive. It looked, if anything, like something designed by a committee that had given up halfway through. And yet, in the years immediately following the extinction, Lystrosaurus accounted for up to 95% of all land vertebrates. 95%. Not 95% of one region or one ecosystem or one ecological niche. 95% of every backbone on land, everywhere on Pangaea, from what would become Antarctica to what would become Russia. The fossil record of the earliest Triassic is essentially a Lystrosaurus record with occasional interruptions. This is unprecedented. No single genus before or since has dominated the terrestrial world so completely. Today, the most abundant large mammal is probably cattle, and they account for a tiny fraction of global vertebrate biomass. Lystrosaurus achieved something that cattle, with all the advantages of human agriculture, have never approached. How? The honest answer is that we do not entirely know. Lystrosaurus had certain advantages. It could dig burrows, which may have helped it survive the environmental extremes of the extinction: the heat, the low oxygen, the toxic atmosphere. Burrows offer stable temperatures, protection from UV radiation, and refuge from predators. A creature that could dig might have found pockets of survivability that surface dwellers could not. Lystrosaurus was also a generalist. Its teeth and jaw structure suggest it could eat a variety of plant material: roots, tubers, stems, whatever it could find. In a world where most plants were dead and the survivors were scattered and unpredictable, generalism was an advantage. A creature that needed a specific food source would have starved. Lystrosaurus ate what was available. It may also have had physiological advantages we cannot detect from fossils. Some researchers have suggested that Lystrosaurus had a relatively high metabolic rate for a synapside, allowing it to remain active in conditions that would have left cold-blooded reptiles sluggish. Others have proposed that its barrel chest housed unusually large lungs, helping it cope with the low oxygen atmosphere of the early Triassic. These are educated guesses. The soft tissues are gone, and we are left with bones and inferences. What we know for certain is the result. Lystrosaurus spread across Pangaea like no animal before it. Its fossils appear in South Africa, Antarctica, India, China, and Russia, locations that were connected in the Triassic but are scattered across the globe today. Wherever paleontologists dig into earliest Triassic rocks, they find Lystrosaurus. It is the signature fossil of the extinction's aftermath, the face of a world emptied of almost everything else. There is a term for this: disaster taxon. A disaster taxon is a species that thrives in the immediate aftermath of a catastrophe, filling the vacuum left by mass death. Disaster taxa are usually generalists, usually tough, usually unspectacular. They do not outcompete other species. They simply survive when others do not, and their populations explode into the empty space. Lystrosaurus is the most successful disaster taxon in the history of complex life. The world it inherited was not a world of opportunity. It was a world of scarcity. Food was limited. Water was unpredictable. Predators were few. The extinction had killed most of them, but so were the resources that predators would have competed for. Lystrosaurus did not thrive because conditions were good. It thrived because it could tolerate conditions that were terrible. The dominance did not last. As the Triassic progressed, as the forests recovered and the ecosystems rebuilt themselves, Lystrosaurus faded. New species evolved to fill the niches that were opening up. Herbivores diversified. Predators returned. The 95% dominance dropped to 90, then 80, then 50, then something more normal. By the middle Triassic, Lystrosaurus was just another genus, no more common than many others. And then, it was gone. The last Lystrosaurus disappears from the fossil record sometime in the middle Triassic, perhaps 245 million years ago. The shovel lizard that had inherited the Earth left no descendants. Its lineage ended. The mammal-like synapsids continued, eventually producing true mammals, but Lystrosaurus itself was a dead end, a survivor that did not survive long enough to matter. This is the paradox of disaster taxa. They win the immediate aftermath, but they rarely win the long game. The traits that make them successful in a devastated world, generalism, toughness, tolerance, are not the traits that make species successful in a recovered world. When complexity returns, when niches differentiate, when competition intensifies, the specialists outcompete the generalists. The disaster taxon fades, replaced by creatures better adapted to the new normal. Lystrosaurus had its moment. For a few million years, it was the most successful large animal on Earth. It walked across Pangaea in numbers that may never be equaled. It defined an era. And then the era ended, and Lystrosaurus ended with it. The fossils remain. They are found on every continent except North America and Europe, a distribution that tells us more about continental drift than about the animal's actual range. Paleontologists still dig them up, still study them, still argue about what made this unremarkable-looking creature so extraordinarily successful. The shovel lizard does not answer. It lies in the rock, tusked skull and barrel body, frozen in the moment of its improbable triumph. But the world does not stay empty for long. The green is returning, the niches are opening, the quiet margins, riverbanks, coastal flats, damp pockets of soil that never quite gave up, are starting to thicken with life again. And with that return comes pressure. New competitors are emerging from the edges, creatures that will not settle for mere survival. Creatures built not just to endure a devastated world, but to take advantage of a recovering one. To see them, you don't look for a new predator first. You look for a new kind of plant. 50 million years is a long time to wait for a forest. But the wait is ending. The brown hills of the early Triassic are changing color. Along the river valleys, in the coastal margins, on the slopes where moisture collects, green is returning. Not the dense, dripping green of the Carboniferous, not the great coal swamps that once stretched across Pangaea. Something different, something tougher, something that has learned from the death of everything that came before. The conifers are leading the way. They grow slowly, these early Triassic trees. Their trunks are thick, their bark is heavy, their needles are coated with wax to prevent water loss. They are not built for abundance. They are built for scarcity, for dry soils, for unpredictable rainfall, for seasons that swing between flood and drought. The conifers do not need the swamps. They do not need the humid, stable conditions that the Carboniferous forests required. They can grow almost anywhere, and in the Middle Triassic they do. Voltsia is the most common. Its fossils appear across Pangaea, from what will become Germany to what will become China. A Voltsia forest does not look like a modern pine forest. The trees are shorter, the spacing is wider, the understory is sparse. Sunlight reaches the ground in patches, and ferns colonize these bright spots, their fronds unfurling in the gaps between trunks. The cycads are spreading too. They look like palm trees, thick, unbranched trunks crowned with sprays of stiff, feathery leaves. But they are not related to palms at all. They are gymnosperms, seed plants that evolved long before flowers existed. The cycads grow slowly, live long, and tolerate poor soil. In the Triassic, these are virtues. Seed ferns fill the understory. Ginkgos appear along waterways, their fan-shaped leaves bright against the darker needles of the conifers. Horsetails grow in dense stands wherever the ground is wet, their hollow, jointed stems reaching toward the light. The vegetation is not diverse by modern standards, but it is vegetation, it is green, it is alive. And where the plants go, the insects follow. The great dying had been hard on insects, not as hard as on marine life, not as hard as on large land vertebrates, but hard enough. Many lineages vanished. The great dragonflies of the Carboniferous, with wingspans approaching a meter, were gone. The diverse beetle fauna of the Permian was decimated. The recovery took millions of years. By the Middle Triassic, the recovery is well underway. Beetles are diversifying. Hundreds of species filling roles as decomposers, herbivores, predators. They chew through dead wood. They burrow into stems. They eat leaves and seeds and each other. The beetles are generalists, opportunists, survivors. They were among the first insects to recover, and they will remain among the most successful for the rest of Earth's history. Flies appear in the fossil record around this time. Not the houseflies you know, but primitive relatives, small, buzzing, breeding in the organic matter that is finally accumulating again. Cockroaches scuttle through the leaf litter, unchanged since the Carboniferous. unchanged since the extinction, apparently immune to anything the planet can throw at them. And then there are the giants, Titanoptera. The name means titan wings, and it is not an exaggeration. These insects are grasshopper-like in shape, with long hind legs and wings that fold along their backs. But they are enormous. Some species reach 15 centimeters in length, with wingspans exceeding 20 centimeters. They are among the largest insects of the Triassic, and they are doing something that no insect has done before. They are singing. The males have specialized structures on their wings, ridges and scrapers that produce sound when rubbed together. This is stridulation, the same mechanism modern crickets and grasshoppers use. But Titanoptera evolved it independently, tens of millions of years before true grasshoppers existed. In the Triassic forests, the silence of the early recovery is giving way to sound. Buzzing, clicking, the rasp of wing against wing. The forests are coming back, and they are not coming back empty. The plants provide food, the insects provide more food, and also pollination, and also decomposition. The ecosystem is rebuilding itself layer by layer. Producers, consumers, decomposers, photosynthesis, herbivory, predation. The cycles that the great dying interrupted are turning again. The recovery is not uniform. Some regions are ahead of others. The coasts of the Tethys Sea, with their reliable moisture and moderate temperatures, are thick with vegetation by the Middle Triassic. The interior of Pangaea remains harsh, sparsely vegetated, hostile to most life. The contrast between habitable and uninhabitable zones is still sharp. But the green is spreading. Every year, every century, every millennium, the forests push a little farther. Seeds drift on the wind and germinate in new territory. Roots probe deeper into soil that is slowly regaining its fertility. The coal gap is closing. Organic matter is accumulating again. You could walk through a Middle Triassic forest and recognize it as a forest. The trees are not the same species, you know, but they are trees. Trunks and branches and leaves reaching toward the sun. The insects are not the same species, but they are insects. 6 legs, compound eyes, the buzz and flutter of small things going about small lives. The soundtrack is different. No birdsong. Birds will not exist for another 50 million years. No mammal calls. Mammals exist, but they are tiny, nocturnal, silent. The dominant sounds are the insects and the wind, the rustle of needles, the crack of a dead branch falling, the distant rumble of thunder over the interior desert. The forest does not know what is coming. The trees do not know that they are setting a stage. The insects do not know that larger creatures are watching from the margins, waiting for the green to spread far enough, thick enough, productive enough to support something bigger. But the larger creatures do know one thing. They can feel the change. More cover, more prey, more places to hide, to hunt, to raise young. The world is finally offering enough energy to support ambition. The archosaurs are stirring. And when archosaurs compete, the contest isn't decided only by teeth or size. It's decided by mechanics, by how a body moves through heat and mud and long drought, how it accelerates, how it turns, how it holds itself up day after day. The evolutionary arms race is about to begin. And the difference is in the ankle. It seems like a small thing, a few bones, a joint, a hinge that bends one way instead of another. But in the Triassic, this small thing will determine everything. It will decide who rules the land for the next 200 million years. It will separate the lineage of crocodiles from the lineage of dinosaurs and birds. It will create 2 evolutionary dynasties from a single ancestor and set them against each other in a competition that only one can win. The archosaurs are rising. They emerged in the late Permian, just before the extinction, a new kind of reptile with something the others lacked, an upright posture. Earlier reptiles sprawled, their legs splayed out to the sides, their bellies close to the ground. Archosaurs stood taller. Their legs were positioned more directly beneath their bodies, allowing them to walk and run more efficiently. This was an advantage in the Permian. In the devastated world of the early Triassic, it became a ticket to dominance. By the middle Triassic, archosaurs are everywhere. They have filled the niches left empty by the extinction. They are the hunters and the hunted, the large and the small, the fast and the slow. They are diversifying at a rate that the fossil record can barely capture, and they are splitting in two. The division happens at the ankle. One group develops a hinge-like joint that allows the foot to rotate in a simple up and down motion, efficient for running, good for speed, ideal for pursuit predators and agile prey. This group is called Avametatarsalia, the bird-footed archosaurs. They are the ancestors of pterosaurs, dinosaurs, and eventually birds. The other group develops a different ankle, with a peg and socket arrangement that allows more complex rotation. This design is better for power than for speed, suited to ambush predators and heavily armored bodies. This group is called Pseudosuchian, the false crocodiles. They are the ancestors of modern crocodilians, but in the Triassic, they are far more than crocodiles. The split happens silently, without drama, in some forgotten swamp or riverbank. No one witnesses it. No one understands its significance. It is just another variation in a world full of variations, another fork in a road that has 1,000 forks. The consequences will take millions of years to unfold. For now, both lineages are thriving. The Pseudosuchians are especially impressive. They are not the flat, aquatic ambush predators that crocodiles will become. They are upright, active, terrestrial hunters. Some walk on 4 legs, some on 2. Some are armored with bony plates called osteoderms. Some reach lengths of 5 meters or more. The Aetosaurs are among the strangest. They are heavily armored herbivores. Imagine an armadillo the size of a car, with a pig-like snout and rows of bony plates covering their backs and flanks. They are the tanks of the Triassic, built for defense rather than speed, grazing on the recovering vegetation while their armor protects them from predators. In 2025, a team of researchers published new findings on one of these armored giants. Working with fossils from the Chinle Formation in Arizona, they examined specimens of Calyptosuchus wellesii, an Aetosaur from the late Triassic of North America. The study revealed new details about the animal's anatomy, the variation in its vertebrae, the structure of its pelvis, the way its armor plates fit together along its body. What makes the study significant is not any single discovery, but the accumulation of detail. Each new specimen, each careful analysis adds to our understanding of how these animals lived. Calyptosuchus was not rare in its time. Its fossils appear across the American Southwest, in rocks that were laid down when the region was a wet, tropical lowland crossed by rivers and dotted with lakes. The Aetosaurs were successful, diverse, abundant, and then they were gone. This is the pattern of the Pseudosuchian dynasty. In the Triassic, they dominate. They fill more niches than the early dinosaurs. They produce more diversity, more body forms, more ecological strategies. The crocodile-line archosaurs are the rulers of the middle and late Triassic. The dinosaurs are bit players, small and marginal, waiting in the wings. The Avametatarsalia are not idle. They are evolving too, developing their own innovations. The pterosaurs take to the air, the first vertebrates to achieve powered flight. The early dinosaurs refined their upright posture, their hollow bones, their efficient respiratory systems. They are building something, though it is not yet clear what. The ankle seems trivial. A joint is just a joint. But the ankle determines how an animal moves, how it hunts, how it escapes. The Pseudosuchian ankle is powerful but limited. The avometatarsalia ankle is simpler but faster. In a world where both designs work well, neither has a decisive advantage. The Triassic will not last forever, conditions will change, and when they do, the ankle will matter. For now, the two lineages share Pangaea. The Rauisuchians hunt in the forests. The Aetosaurs graze along the rivers. The Phytosaurs, crocodile-like predators, but actually Pseudosuchians, lurk in the waterways. The early dinosaurs scurry in the underbrush, eating insects, avoiding the larger predators, growing slowly, diversifying quietly. The war is not yet a war, it is a competition, a parallel evolution, a slow divergence that will only become visible in hindsight. The archosaurs have split, but neither branch knows that one will inherit the earth and the other will shrink to a remnant. The ankle holds the secret. The ankle will decide, but not yet, not for millions of years. For now, the Pseudosuchians rule, and the dinosaurs wait. Before the dinosaurs ruled, something else held the throne. They walked on legs that were almost fully upright. They carried their bodies high off the ground. They had skulls filled with serrated teeth, built for tearing flesh, capable of killing anything they encountered. They were the apex predators of the Middle and Late Triassic, the dominant carnivores of a world where dinosaurs were still small and marginal and afraid. They were the Rauisuchians, and for 30 million years they were the kings. Pseudosuchian is the one you would recognize. Its fossils come from Texas and Arizona, from rocks laid down when the American Southwest was a tropical floodplain. It reached 4 to 5 meters in length, with a massive skull nearly half a meter long. Its teeth were blade-like, curved, serrated along the edges. It walked on 4 legs but could probably rear up on 2. It was built like a carnivorous dinosaur, looked like a carnivorous dinosaur, hunted like a carnivorous dinosaur. It was not a dinosaur. It was a Pseudosuchian, a member of the crocodile lineage. The resemblance to later theropods like Tyrannosaurus is convergent evolution, two unrelated groups arriving at similar solutions to similar problems. Big bodies, powerful jaws, upright posture. The design works. Evolution finds it again and again. Pseudosuchian was not alone. The Rauisuchians were diverse, spread across Pangaea, filling the large predator niche on every continent. Saurosuchus in South America reached 7 meters. Phaseolosuchus, also from South America, may have been even larger. Fragmentary fossils suggest an animal 9 meters long, one of the largest land predators the Triassic produced. Batrachotomus prowled what would become Germany. Pseudosuchian hunted in Brazil. These were not the sluggish, aquatic ambush predators that crocodilians would become. These were active terrestrial hunters. They chased prey. They competed with each other. They dominated their ecosystems completely. In November 2025, a team led by paleontologist Rodrigo Temp Muller announced a new addition to this dynasty of predators. The discovery came from southern Brazil, near the town of Dona Francisca. Muller and his colleagues had been excavating in rocks from the Middle Triassic, approximately 240 million years old. What they found was a predator that looked, at first glance, like a dinosaur. It had an agile body, a long neck, and a jaw filled with sharp, recurved teeth. It walked upright, hunted actively, and would have been one of the dominant carnivores of its ecosystem. But anatomical analysis told a different story. The structure of the pelvis, the shape of the femur, the arrangement of bones in the hip, all pointed to Pseudosuchian. This was not a dinosaur. This was another crocodile-line predator, another member of the dynasty that ruled before the dinosaurs rose. They named it Tinraquasuchus bellator. The genus name combines words from Guarani, the indigenous language of the region, meaning pointed-tooth crocodile. The species name bellator is Latin for warrior. It honors the people of Rio Grande do Sul, who had just survived devastating floods in 2024 and 2025. The paleontologists had watched their communities struggle, had lost people they knew. The name carries their resilience forward into deep time. Tinraquasuchus was not the largest Rauisuchian. At 2.4 meters long and roughly 60 kilograms, it was a mid-sized predator, built for speed and precision rather than brute force. Its long neck and slender jaws suggest a hunting style based on quick strikes, darting in, seizing prey with recurved teeth, holding on until the victim stopped struggling. Its back was covered with bony plates called osteoderms, the same armor that protects modern crocodiles. This was not unusual for Pseudosuchians. Many lineages developed similar protection, but the combination of agility and armor is striking. Tinraquasuchus was built for both offense and defense, a predator that could attack quickly and survive retaliation. The ecosystem it inhabited was complex. The same rocks that yielded Tinraquasuchus have produced other predators, some reaching 7 meters in length. There were giants in this world, and Tinraquasuchus lived alongside them. It found its niche not by being the biggest, but by being fast, precise, and adaptable. This is the story of the Rauisuchians. They were not a single type of predator, but a dynasty that explored many strategies. Some grew enormous, some stayed small. Some were specialists, others generalists. They filled the predator niches of the Triassic so thoroughly that the early dinosaurs could barely find room to exist. The dinosaurs were there. Small theropods darted through the underbrush, eating insects and small vertebrates, staying out of the way of the Rauisuchians. Early sauropodomorphs browsed on vegetation, growing larger over time, but not yet approaching the sizes they would reach in the Jurassic. The dinosaurs were diversifying, evolving, improving. They were not winning. The Pseudosuchians had the advantages, the established niches, the larger bodies, the proven designs. The dinosaurs had potential, but potential does not catch prey. The Rauisuchians ruled because they were good at ruling. The dinosaurs survived because there were margins and niches and leftovers. This balance held for millions of years. The crocodile kings dominated the Triassic. The dinosaurs waited. Neither group knew that the balance was about to break. They hunt at night now. The creatures that will become mammals have learned to avoid the day. The sun belongs to the archosaurs, to the Rauisuchians patrolling the forests, to the Aetosaurs grazing the riverbanks, to the early dinosaurs competing for whatever scraps remain. The synapsids, the mammal-line reptiles that once dominated the Permian, have been pushed to the margins. They are smaller than they used to be, quieter, more careful. They are learning to survive by being invisible. 50 million years earlier, synapsids ruled the world. Gorgonopsians were the apex predators of the late Permian, saber-toothed hunters up to 3 meters long, with skulls built for killing large prey. Dicynodonts were the dominant herbivores, barrel-bodied, tusked, numbering in the millions. The synapsids had explored every major ecological niche. They were the success story of the Paleozoic. The Great Dying changed everything. Most synapsid lineages vanished in the extinction. The Gorgonopsians disappeared entirely. The Dicynodonts survived as a single lineage, produced Lystrosaurus and a few other genera, then faded as the Triassic progressed. By the Middle Triassic, the synapsid empire was a memory. The archosaurs had taken their place. One group held on. The cynodonts, dog teeth in Greek, were small synapsids that survived the extinction and continued to evolve through the Triassic. They were not impressive animals. Most were the size of rats or small dogs. Their fossils are easily overlooked, buried in rocks dominated by the larger, more dramatic archosaurs. But the cynodonts were changing in ways the fossils can barely capture. They were developing fur. Not the heavy coats of modern mammals, not at first, but sparse coverings of hair-like structures that provided insulation. Fur does not fossilize well. It decays too quickly, leaves too little trace. We infer its presence from other evidence: the pits on cynodont skulls that housed whiskers, the bone structures that suggest facial muscles capable of moving those whiskers, the general body plan that makes no sense without some form of insulation. Whiskers mean fur. Whiskers mean a creature that hunts by touch, that navigates in darkness, that relies on senses other than sight. Whiskers mean a nocturnal animal. They were developing warm blood. Again, the evidence is indirect. Warm-blooded animals need more food than cold-blooded animals of the same size, but they can remain active in conditions that would leave reptiles sluggish. The bone structure of cynodonts shows rapid growth rates, consistent with high metabolic demands. Their teeth were differentiated: incisors, canines, molars, allowing them to process food more efficiently, extracting more energy from each meal. The nasal passages of advanced cynodonts were complex, with turbinate bones that warmed and moistened air before it reached the lungs. These are the anatomical signatures of endothermy, of a body that generates its own heat. The cynodonts were becoming mammals. Not mammals yet. True mammals would not appear until the very end of the Triassic or the beginning of the Jurassic, but the foundation was being laid: warm blood, fur, specialized teeth, enhanced senses. The package that would eventually produce mice and whales and humans was assembling itself, piece by piece, in animals the size of your hand. Why shrink? Why retreat into the night? The answer is competition. The archosaurs had won the day. They were faster, larger, better adapted to the warm Triassic climate. A cold-blooded archosaur basking in the sun could reach operating temperature quickly, could hunt and feed and reproduce while the sun was high. A synapsid trying to compete in the same niche would lose. But at night, the equation changed. Cold-blooded animals slow down when temperatures drop. Their muscles grow sluggish. Their reactions falter. The archosaurs that dominated the day became vulnerable at night, retreating to burrows and hiding spots to wait for sunrise. A warm-blooded animal does not slow down. Its internal furnace keeps burning, keeps the muscles ready, keeps the brain sharp. At night, in the cool hours before dawn, a small, warm-blooded cynodont could hunt while its archosaur competitors dozed. The nocturnal niche was open. The cynodonts took it. The price was size. Large bodies are hard to fuel. A warm-blooded animal needs to eat constantly, needs to find food in quantities that scale with body mass. A large, warm-blooded cynodont would need more food than the Triassic night could provide. Small bodies are more efficient. They lose heat faster, yes, but they need less fuel. The cynodonts shrank because shrinking was the only way to make the metabolic math work. They shrank and they survived. The night world of the Triassic is invisible to us. The fossils preserve bones, not behavior. They preserve teeth, not the sounds of small creatures rustling through leaf litter in the dark. But we can reconstruct it, in outline at least. Small, furry synapsids emerging from burrows as the sun sets. Hunting insects, worms, maybe the eggs of sleeping archosaurs. Moving quickly, nervously, always alert for the larger predators that might still be active. They were not successful by any measure the Triassic would have recognized. They did not dominate. They did not diversify into hundreds of species. They clung to a narrow niche generation after generation, while the archosaurs carved up the daylight world without them. This is not a victory, it is a holding action. But holding actions sometimes win wars. The cynodonts were building something in the Triassic darkness, a body plan, a physiology, a way of life that would prove extraordinarily durable. They did not know it. They were just surviving, night by night, meal by meal. The archosaurs ruled the Triassic. the dinosaurs would rule the Jurassic and Cretaceous. And then, 66 million years ago, an asteroid would fall, and the night dwellers would inherit the Earth. That is far in the future. For now, the cynodonts hunt in darkness, grow fur in silence, and wait. The waiting will be worth it. The shoreline is where two worlds meet. On one side, the land, dry, harsh, dominated by archosaurs. On the other, the sea, warm, shallow, still recovering from the extinction but filling with life. The coast of the Tethys Sea stretches for thousands of kilometers along the eastern edge of Pangaea, and along this coast something remarkable is happening. Reptiles are going back to the water. This is not the first time land animals have returned to the sea. It will not be the last. But the Triassic return is one of the most dramatic producing lineages that will dominate the oceans for the next 150 million years. The descendants of creatures that crawled onto land 100 million years earlier are crawling back into the surf, trading legs for flippers, lungs for breath-holding, terrestrial hunting for marine pursuit. The Nothosaurs are among the first. They look like something caught mid-transition, which is exactly what they are. A Nothosaur has 4 limbs, but they are not quite legs and not quite flippers. Elongated, webbed, capable of both walking on land and paddling through water. The body is streamlined but not fully aquatic. The neck is long, flexible, ending in a narrow skull filled with needle-sharp teeth. A Nothosaur can haul itself onto a beach, can bask in the Triassic sun, can move clumsily across sand to reach a better hunting spot, but it is more comfortable in the water. Watch a Nothosaur hunt. It moves through the shallows with sinuous grace, the long neck sweeping side to side, the small head darting forward to snatch fish from schools that scatter too slowly. The teeth interlock when the jaws close, forming a trap that nothing slippery can escape. The Nothosaur does not chase its prey over long distances. It ambushes, lunges, strikes. The Tethys coastline is perfect for this hunting style. The sea is shallow here, warm, rich with the nutrients washing down from Pangaea's rivers. Fish are abundant. Cephalopods, the ancestors of squids and octopuses, drift in the open water. Shellfish cling to the rocky substrate. The reef systems that were destroyed in the extinction are slowly rebuilding, creating habitat complexity that supports a growing food web. The Nothosaurs are not alone. Pachypleurosaurs are smaller, more delicate, built for life in lagoons and tidal pools. They eat small fish and crustaceans, avoiding the larger predators, filling a niche that requires precision rather than power. Their fossils are common in the shallow marine deposits of the Tethys region, often preserved in extraordinary detail. Complete skeletons articulated in fine-grained limestone, frozen in the moment of death. Placodonts take a different path. They are heavily built, with broad, flat bodies and crushing teeth designed for shellfish. A placodont looks almost turtle-like, though it is not related to turtles. Some species develop shells of their own, bony armor covering the back, providing protection from the larger predators that share their habitat. The placodonts are slow, methodical, specializing in prey that cannot run away. The variety is astonishing. Within a few million years of the extinction, the Tethys Sea hosts dozens of marine reptile species, each adapted to its own niche, each exploring a different way to make a living in the water. The Great Dying killed almost everything in the oceans. The recovery is producing something new. Why return to the sea? The answer is opportunity. The oceans were devastated by the extinction. Up to 95% of marine species vanished. The niches they left behind were empty, waiting for anything that could fill them. Land animals had survived in greater numbers. They had legs, lungs, the ability to move across the coastal zones where the recovery was beginning. The sea offered food without competition. The reefs were gone, but the fish were coming back. The shellfish were recovering. The cephalopods had survived the extinction better than most groups, and they were diversifying rapidly. For a land reptile willing to spend more time in the water, the Triassic Ocean was a buffet with no line. Evolution responded. Limbs became paddles, bodies became streamlined, necks lengthened for striking at fast-moving prey, tails flattened for propulsion. Generation by generation, the transition accelerated. The Nothosaurs would not complete the journey. They remained tied to the shore, returning to land to rest and breed. True fully aquatic reptiles were still evolving, still refining the design, still working out the problems of breathing, birthing, and diving in a world without air. But the path was open. The sea had called, and the reptiles had answered. Along the shores of the Tethys, in the warm shallows of a recovering ocean, the first marine reptile dynasty was taking shape. The Nothosaurs hunted in the surf. The Pterosaurs darted through the tide pools. The Placodonts crushed shells on the seafloor. The water was warm. The hunting was good. The competition was minimal. Something larger was coming. Something faster. Something that would leave the shore behind entirely and never return. The leviathans were on their way. 25 meters, the length of a blue whale. This is not an exaggeration. This is not a guess. This is what the fossils tell us, that by the end of the Triassic, Ichthyosaurs had reached sizes that rival the largest animals ever to live on Earth. They were not the sluggish, shore-bound hunters of the early marine reptiles. They were fast, fully aquatic, born in the water and dying in the water, never touching land from birth to death. The Ichthyosaurs abandoned the shore completely. Look at an Ichthyosaur skeleton and you see a creature built for speed. The body is streamlined, tapered at both ends, shaped like a torpedo or a tuna. The limbs have become flippers, the bones still there, still recognizable as arm bones and leg bones, but shortened, flattened, encased in tissue that forms a hydrodynamic paddle. The tail is tall and vertical, like a shark's tail, powered by muscles that drove the animal through the water at speeds no Nothosaur could match. The eyes are enormous. In some species, the eye sockets measure more than 25 centimeters across, the largest eyes of any known animal, living or extinct. Large eyes gather more light, see better in dim conditions, detect motion at greater distances. The Ichthyosaurs were visual hunters, tracking prey in the blue twilight of deep water, diving to depths that modern whales would recognize. They gave birth to live young. We know this because fossils preserve the moment. Adult Ichthyosaurs with embryos still inside them, juveniles emerging tail first like modern dolphins. A creature that cannot return to land cannot lay eggs on a beach. The Ichthyosaurs solved this problem the way whales would solve it 200 million years later. They kept their babies inside until they could swim. The evolution was rapid. Ichthyosaurs appear in the fossil record almost immediately after the Great Dying, already recognizable, already specialized for marine life. By the Middle Triassic, they had diversified into dozens of species. By the Late Triassic, they had produced giants. In April 2024, a team led by paleontologist Dean Lomax announced the identification of one of these giants. The story began years earlier, on a beach in Somerset, England. A fossil collector named Paul de la Salle noticed something unusual in the rocks, a massive bone, weathered and fragmentary, but clearly from something enormous. Over the following years, more pieces emerged. Lomax and his colleagues assembled them, analyzed them, compared them to other specimens from the same geological formation. What they found was a jawbone, more than 2 meters long, belonging to an ichthyosaur that may have measured 25 meters from snout to tail. They named it Ichthyotitan severnensis, giant fish lizard of the Severn, after the river that flows nearby. The species lived approximately 202 million years ago, at the very end of the Triassic period. It was among the last of the giant Ichthyosaurs, one of the largest marine reptiles ever to exist. The discovery had an unexpected contributor. Ruby Reynolds, an 11-year-old girl, was walking the Somerset beach with her father when she spotted a piece of the jawbone jutting from the rock. She recognized it as something unusual. Her discovery led to the recovery of additional fragments that proved essential to identifying the new species. Science sometimes works this way. The professionals dig and analyze and publish, but the first eyes on a fossil are often amateur. A farmer ploughing a field, a hiker on a cliff path, a child on a beach. The fossils do not care who finds them. They wait for whoever comes. Ichthyotitan represents the peak of Ichthyosaur gigantism. These animals had reached sizes comparable to modern blue whales, using a completely different body plan, filling a completely different ecological niche. The blue whale is a filter feeder, straining tiny krill from the water. Ichthyotitan was a predator, hunting fish and cephalopods and perhaps smaller marine reptiles. The giants did not last. The Triassic-Jurassic extinction event, approximately 201 million years ago, hit the giant ichthyosaurs hard. The largest species vanished. The lineage survived. Ichthyosaurs would swim the Jurassic and Cretaceous seas for another 130 million years, but never again at these sizes. The design that produced Ichthyotitan was lost, a branch of evolution that reached its limit and broke. We do not know why. The extinction killed many things, and the causes are still debated. Volcanic activity, climate change, ocean acidification, the usual suspects for mass extinctions. Whatever the mechanism, the giants were vulnerable. Their fossils remain, scattered along the coasts of Britain, preserved in rocks that were once the floor of a shallow sea. The bones of Ichthyotitan wait for collectors to find them. Most will never be found. Erosion will crumble them into sand before any human eye sees them. But some will emerge, as Ruby Reynolds' fragment emerged, and the story will continue to unfold. The Triassic oceans held leviathans. They are gone now. The seas they swam have become rock and soil and cliffsides. The prey they hunted has no living descendants, but for a moment, for 30 million years, which is a moment in geological time, the ichthyosaurs ruled the deep. They were the largest, the fastest, the most perfectly adapted marine reptiles the world had yet seen. The sky remained unconquered, but not for long. Something new moves against the Triassic sky. It is not a bird. Birds will not exist for another 50 million years. It is not an insect. The Triassic has insects, but nothing this large, nothing this purposeful, nothing that casts a shadow like this. It is something that has never existed before, something that evolution has just invented, something impossible. It is flying. The pterosaurs are the first vertebrates to achieve powered flight, not gliding. Many animals glide, launching themselves from trees and spreading membranes to slow their fall. Powered flight requires something more. It requires wings that beat, muscles that sustain the motion, a body redesigned from the ground up to defy gravity. The pterosaurs have achieved this. The wing is made of membrane, a thin sheet of skin and muscle stretched between an enormously elongated fourth finger and the body. The other fingers remain small, functional, capable of grasping and climbing. But the fourth finger has become something extraordinary, a single bone longer than the entire arm, supporting a wing surface that can catch air and push it down. The body has changed to match. Pterosaur bones are hollow, thin-walled, filled with air sacs that reduce weight while maintaining strength. The breastbone has expanded into a massive plate, anchoring the flight muscles. The skeleton is a study in compromise, strong enough to withstand the stresses of flight, light enough to get off the ground. The first pterosaurs are small. Eudimorphodon from the late Triassic of what will become Italy has a wingspan of about 1 meter. It has a long tail, a mouthful of teeth differentiated for catching fish and insects, and the slightly awkward proportions of a lineage still working out the details of aerial life. It is not elegant, it is not dominant, it is proof of concept. The proof is convincing. Within a few million years, pterosaurs have diversified across Pangaea. They are fishing in the shallows of the Tethys Sea. They are snatching insects from the air above the conifer forests. They are doing something that no vertebrate has ever done, living in 3 dimensions, exploiting a niche that was previously occupied only by insects. The archosaurs have conquered land and sea. Now they are conquering the air. Why did it take so long? Flight evolved in insects hundreds of millions of years earlier. Why did vertebrates wait until the Triassic to follow? The answer may lie in the extinction. The Great Dying cleared the board, removed the established players, created empty niches that new designs could fill. A flying vertebrate in the Permian would have competed with well-established insect predators, with aerial ecosystems already shaped by hundreds of millions of years of evolution. A flying vertebrate in the Triassic faced less competition. The insects were recovering. The niches were open. The opportunity was there. Or perhaps it was simply chance. Evolution does not follow a schedule. Innovations appear when the right mutations meet the right selection pressures, and that combination is unpredictable. The Triassic might have produced pterosaurs because the time was right, or simply because the dice finally came up in their favor. What we know is the result. By the late Triassic, pterosaurs are established. They are not dominant. They are still rare in the fossil record, still small, still refining their design. But they are present. They are successful, they are spreading. The descendants of these first flyers will rule the Mesozoic skies. Pteranodon, with its 7-meter wingspan. Quetzalcoatlus, tall as a giraffe, the largest flying animal ever to exist. For 160 million years, if you looked up, you might see a pterosaur. That dominance lies in the future. In the late Triassic, the pterosaurs are newcomers, still learning what wings can do, still exploring the possibilities of a world where gravity is a suggestion rather than a rule. Watch one fly. The wing beats are strong but infrequent. Pterosaurs, like modern soaring birds, likely used thermal currents and wind patterns to stay aloft, flapping only when necessary. The body is awkward on land, the wings folded and cumbersome, but in the air everything changes. The pterosaur becomes graceful, precise, capable of maneuvers that no land-bound predator can match. The insects have company now. The skies that belong to dragonflies and beetles must be shared with something larger, something with teeth, something that can hunt on the wing. The Triassic has filled the land. It has filled the sea. Now it is filling the sky. The recovery from the Great Dying is almost complete. Life has rebuilt itself in every dimension, has explored every available niche, has produced forms that the Permian could never have imagined. It begins with rain, not the seasonal monsoons that sweep across the coasts of Pangaea every year, not the scattered storms that break the drought in the interior. Something different, something that does not stop. The year is approximately 234 million years ago. The place is everywhere, and it is raining. The Carnian Pluvial episode is one of the strangest climate events in Earth's history. For roughly 2 million years, a span of time that swallows entire civilizations, entire evolutionary lineages, entire ways of life, the planet becomes dramatically, persistently wet. The arid interior of Pangaea, the great red desert that has dominated the supercontinent for tens of millions of years, begins to shrink. Rivers swell, lakes form where there were none. The brown gives way to green. We see it in the rocks. The sediments of the Middle Triassic are dominated by red beds, oxidized, iron-rich deposits that form in dry conditions. Then, abruptly, the rocks change. dark mudstones appear, rich in organic matter. Coal seams form for the first time since the early Triassic recovery. Fossil soils show evidence of waterlogging, of swamps, of conditions utterly unlike what came before. Something had changed the climate. Something had tipped the balance from dry to wet across an entire planet. The cause, as with so many things in deep time, was volcanic. The Rangelia Large Igneous Province, a massive outpouring of lava in what is now Western North America, erupted during the Carnian. The eruptions released enormous quantities of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, triggering a greenhouse effect that warmed the planet and intensified the hydrological cycle. Warmer air holds more moisture. More moisture means more rain. The feedback loop spiraled until the entire climate system shifted into a new state. The world became a greenhouse, and the greenhouse became a swamp. For the creatures of the Middle Triassic, this was catastrophe. The archosaurs that had adapted to arid conditions, the Rauisuchians hunting in dry forests, the Aetosaurs grazing on drought-resistant vegetation, found their world transformed. The niches they had filled were changing beneath their feet. The food webs they depended on were restructuring. Extinction rates spiked. Not a mass extinction on the scale of the Great Dying, but a significant pulse of species loss. The Carnian Pluvial episode was a filter, removing species that could not adapt to the new conditions, creating openings for species that could. The openings favored the dinosaurs. This is where the story turns. The dinosaurs had been present since the Middle Triassic, small and marginal, overshadowed by the Rauisuchians and other Pseudosuchians. They were not dominant. They were not successful by any obvious measure. They were survivors, filling whatever niches the larger archosaurs left behind. The rains changed everything. The new, wetter environments favored different body plans, different metabolisms, different survival strategies. The dinosaurs, for reasons we do not fully understand, were better suited to these conditions than their Pseudosuchian competitors. Perhaps their respiratory systems, more efficient, more flexible, gave them an advantage in the humid, oxygen-variable atmosphere. Perhaps their upright posture was better adapted to the soft, waterlogged ground. Perhaps it was something else entirely, something the fossils cannot tell us. What we know is the result. After the Carnian Pluvial episode, dinosaurs become more common in the fossil record. They diversify. They grow larger. They begin to fill niches that were previously occupied by other archosaurs. The shift is not immediate. It takes millions of years, but the trajectory is clear. The rains made room for the dinosaurs. Listen to the Carnian. Close your eyes and hear it. The constant patter of rain on broad leaves. The rush of swollen rivers cutting new channels through soft earth. The drip of water from every surface. The squelch of mud underfoot. The humid weight of air so saturated that breathing feels like drinking. Thunder rolling across skies that are never quite clear. The calls of creatures you cannot name, hidden in forests that are spreading across land that was desert a million years before. This is not the Triassic you have been imagining. This is something else. A wet world, a green world, a world in transition. The old order is dying. The new order has not yet emerged. Everything is in flux. 2 million years of rain. Long enough for forests to march across continents. Long enough for species to evolve, adapt, go extinct. Long enough for the balance of power among the archosaurs to shift in ways that would echo for the next 165 million years. And then, as suddenly as it began, the rain stops. The climate swings back toward aridity. The lakes shrink, the rivers retreat, the interior desert reasserts itself, though it never quite regains its former extent. The Carnian Pluvial episode ends and the late Triassic begins. But the world that emerges from the rain is not the world that entered it. The dinosaurs are stronger now. The Pseudosuchians are weaker. The trajectory has been set. The first true dinosaur dynasty is about to begin. The first dinosaurs do not look like rulers. They are small, most of them no larger than a dog, some no larger than a chicken. They walk on two legs, which is unusual for the time, their long tails balancing their bodies as they run. Their arms are short, their hands grasping, their teeth suited for catching small prey or tearing at vegetation. They are not impressive. They are not dominant. They are simply present, filling gaps in ecosystems still shaped by larger, older dynasties. Eoraptor. The name means dawn thief, and it is apt. This creature, known from fossils in Argentina dating to approximately 231 million years ago, is one of the oldest dinosaurs we have found. It was about a meter long, weighed perhaps 10 kilograms, and probably ate whatever it could catch or scavenge: insects, small vertebrates, perhaps plants when animal food was scarce. Eoraptor was a generalist, an opportunist, a survivor. Herrerasaurus was larger, more clearly predatory. At 3 to 4 meters long, it was one of the biggest dinosaurs of the late Triassic, though it would be dwarfed by the theropods of the Jurassic and Cretaceous. Its teeth were curved and serrated, built for slicing flesh. Its legs were powerful, designed for pursuit. Herrerasaurus was a hunter, one of the first dinosaurs to specialize in killing other vertebrates. These early dinosaurs shared their world with the Pseudosuchians, the Rauisuchians, the Aetosaurs, the Phytosaurs. They were not the apex predators. They were not the dominant herbivores. They occupied secondary niches, living in the shadows of animals that had ruled since before the Carnian rains. But they were spreading. The same body plan that produced Eoraptor and Herrerasaurus in South America was appearing across Pangaea. Dinosaurs were diversifying, adapting, finding footholds in ecosystems from what would become Europe to what would become Africa. The supercontinent was a highway, and the dinosaurs were learning to use it. In May 2024, a team of researchers announced a discovery that illustrated just how far the early dinosaurs had spread. The fossils came from Zimbabwe, from the shores of Lake Kariba, where the Zambezi River has been dammed into a vast artificial lake. The team had been working in the region for years, camping on houseboats, excavating sites that were accessible only by water. The conditions were difficult, remote, hot, dependent on the cooperation of weather and wildlife. What they found was a leg, a single hind limb embedded in rock from the late Triassic. The thigh bone, the shin, the ankle, enough to identify the animal as a dinosaur and enough to recognize it as something new. They named it Musanqua sanyatiensis. The genus name honors the houseboat that served as their floating laboratory during 2 field expeditions. The species name refers to the Sanyati Basin, the geological region where the fossils were found. It was only the 4th dinosaur species ever named from Zimbabwe, and the first from the mid-Zambezi Basin in over 50 years. Musanqua was a sauropodomorph, a member of the lineage that would eventually produce the giant long-necked dinosaurs of the Jurassic and Cretaceous. In the late Triassic, sauropodomorphs were still relatively modest, though they were beginning to grow. Musanqua weighed approximately 390 kilograms, making it one of the larger dinosaurs of its time. It walked on 2 legs, browsed on vegetation, and lived in an environment that was probably a mix of woodland and open ground. The discovery matters not because Musanqua was exceptional, but because it was ordinary. Here was a dinosaur living in Africa, following the same basic body plan as its relatives in South America. The early dinosaurs were not isolated populations. They were a connected phenomenon, spreading across Pangaea, filling similar niches on every continent. The researchers noted something else. The fossils from Zimbabwe were roughly contemporary with fossils from South Africa and Argentina. The early dinosaurs appeared across the southern continents at approximately the same time, suggesting a rapid dispersal from some point of origin, probably South America, where the oldest dinosaurs have been found. The dinosaurs were not waiting anymore. They were moving. The Carnian rains had opened doors. The old Pseudosuchian dynasties were weakened, their niches disrupted, their dominance no longer assured. The dinosaurs, with their efficient respiratory systems and their adaptable body plans, were pushing through those doors. They were still not dominant. The Rauisuchians still prowled the forests. The Aetosaurs still grazed the riverbanks. The Phytosaurs still lurked in the waterways. The late Triassic was a world in transition, and the outcome was not yet certain. But the trajectory was clear. The dinosaurs were rising. Slowly, steadily, generation by generation, they were claiming more of the world. The dawn was breaking. The day was about to begin. Plateosaurus weighs as much as a small car. This is new. The dinosaurs of the Middle Triassic were measured in kilograms, 10, 20, maybe 50. Plateosaurus tips the scales at several hundred, perhaps as much as 4,000 in the largest individuals. It is 6 to 10 meters long, with a small head on a long neck, a barrel-shaped body, and powerful hind legs that can support its weight on 2 feet or 4. The giants have arrived. Plateosaurus is a prosauropod, an early member of the lineage that will eventually produce the largest land animals in Earth's history. Brachiosaurus, Diplodocus, Argentinosaurus, the great sauropods of the Jurassic and Cretaceous are all descended from animals like this one. The body plan is already recognizable: long neck for reaching vegetation, large gut for processing tough plant material, size itself as a defense against predators. The late Triassic of what will become Germany is thick with Plateosaurus. Their fossils accumulate in bone beds, mass death sites where dozens of individuals died together, perhaps trapped in mud, perhaps caught in droughts, perhaps victims of some other catastrophe that concentrated their remains. These bone beds tell us that Plateosaurus lived in groups, moved across the landscape in herds, consumed vegetation in quantities that shaped the ecosystems around them. They were the first dinosaur mega-herbivores, not the first large herbivores. The cynodonts and rhynchosaurs had filled that role earlier in the Triassic, but those lineages were fading. The cynodonts were gone or nearly gone. The rhynchosaurs would not survive the end of the period. Plateosaurus and its relatives were inheriting a niche that had been occupied by other animals for millions of years. The takeover was not instant. It was not dramatic. It was a slow replacement, species by species, ecosystem by ecosystem, as the old mega-herbivores declined and the new ones rose. By the end of the Triassic, prosauropods were the dominant large plant eaters across much of Pangaea. But where did the dinosaurs come from? This question haunts paleontology. The earliest dinosaurs appear in the fossil record approximately 230 million years ago, already recognizable, already distinct from their closest relatives. What came before them? What were the transitional forms, the proto-dinosaurs, the ancestors that bridge the gap between early archosaurs and the first true dinosaurs? The answer may lie with a group called the Silesaurids. Silesaurids are frustrating animals. They look like dinosaurs. They have dinosaur-like teeth, dinosaur-like ankles, dinosaur-like hip structures. But they are not quite dinosaurs, or are they? The debate has divided paleontologists for decades. Some argue that Silesaurids are the sister group to dinosaurs, the closest relatives that never quite crossed the line. Others argue that Silesaurids are dinosaurs, early members of the Ornithischian lineage that would eventually produce Triceratops and Stegosaurus. In October 2024, a discovery from Brazil added new fuel to this debate. The fossil came from Paraíso do Sul in the southern state of Rio Grande do Sul. A physician named Pedro Lucas Porcela Aurelio had found it years earlier, embedded in rock, barely visible. He donated it to a university where paleontologist Rodrigo Tempmuller began the painstaking work of extraction and analysis. What emerged was a silesaurid, but a silesaurid with an unusual feature. Most early silesaurids have two sacral vertebrae, the fused bones that connect the spine to the pelvis. This specimen had three. Three sacral vertebrae is a dinosaur trait, one of the characteristics that define the group. The boundary between silesaurid and dinosaur was blurring. They named it Gondwanax paraisensis. Gondwanax means Lord of Gondwana, a reference to the southern supercontinent that would eventually separate from Pangaea. The species name honors the town where it was found. At 237 million years old, it is one of the oldest silesaurids ever discovered, and possibly one of the oldest dinosaurs depending on how you draw the line. The implications are significant. If silesaurids are early dinosaurs, then dinosaurs originated millions of years earlier than the fossil record currently suggests. The group would have been diversifying in the Middle Triassic, not just the Late Triassic. The rise of the dinosaurs would be a longer, slower process than we thought. Muller was cautious in his conclusions. One specimen cannot resolve a decades-old debate. More fossils are needed, more anatomical details, more data points to trace the line between what is a dinosaur and what is not. But Gondwanax had moved the conversation forward. The boundary was less certain than it had been before. The first giants were emerging. Plateosaurus in Europe, other prosauropods across Pangaea, large bodies becoming common where they had once been rare. The dinosaurs were growing, diversifying, claiming niches that would be theirs for the next 165 million years. And somewhere in the deep past, in the murky boundary between silesaurid and dinosaur, the origin of the dynasty remained hidden, waiting for the next fossil to emerge from the rock. Pangaea is breaking apart. You can almost hear it. Deep beneath the surface, the mantle is churning. The forces that held the supercontinent together for 100 million years are reversing. Rifts are opening, long jagged wounds in the Earth's crust that will eventually become the Atlantic Ocean. The continents are beginning their slow drift toward the positions you would recognize on a modern map. The rifting brings fire. The Central Atlantic Magmatic Province, CAMP, is one of the largest volcanic events in Earth's history. Beginning approximately 201 million years ago, lava pours from fissures that stretch from what will become Brazil to what will become Morocco. The eruptions continue, on and off, for roughly 600,000 years. They cover more than 11 million square kilometers with basalt. They release carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide in quantities that dwarf any human industrial output. The planet responds. Temperatures spike. Ocean chemistry shifts. The already stressed ecosystems of the late Triassic begin to collapse. This is the Triassic-Jurassic extinction event. It is not as severe as the Great Dying. Nothing is as severe as the Great Dying, but it is severe enough. Approximately 75% of all species vanish. The reefs die again. The marine invertebrates are decimated again. The land animals that survived the Permian extinction, that rebuilt the world through 50 million years of patient evolution, face another filter. The filter is selective. It does not kill everything equally. It kills some lineages almost completely while leaving others nearly untouched. The Rauisuchians die. The great crocodile-line predators that ruled the Triassic, the Pseudosuchian and Saurosuchus and all their kin, vanish from the fossil record. Not one survives into the Jurassic. The dynasty that dominated for 30 million years ends in geological silence. The Aetosaurs die. The armored herbivores, the tanks of the Triassic, leave no descendants. Their ecological niche will eventually be filled by ankylosaurs, dinosaurs, not Pseudosuchians. The replacement is complete. The phytosaurs die. The crocodile-like ambush predators of Triassic waterways, the animals that looked so much like modern crocodiles but were not related to them, disappear entirely. Actual crocodilians survive and will eventually take their place. Convergent evolution plays the same trick twice. The Pseudosuchian dynasty is over. The crocodile-line, which dominated the Triassic so thoroughly, is reduced to a remnant. The survivors are small, aquatic, marginal. They will persist. Crocodilians are still with us, 200 million years later, but they will never again rule the land. The dinosaurs survive. We do not know why. The same volcanic winter that killed the Rauisuchians should have killed the theropods. The same ocean acidification that destroyed the Phytosaurs should have destroyed the early crocodilians. Whatever physiological or ecological advantage carried the dinosaurs through the extinction, it is not obvious from the fossils. Perhaps it was respiratory efficiency. Dinosaurs had air sac systems like modern birds that allowed them to extract oxygen more effectively than other reptiles. In an atmosphere choked with volcanic gases, this might have mattered. Perhaps it was growth rate. Dinosaurs grew quickly, reaching reproductive age faster than many of their competitors. In a world where survival was uncertain, fast reproduction might have made the difference. Perhaps it was luck. Mass extinctions are chaotic events. Some lineages survive not because they are better adapted, but because they happen to be in the right place at the right time. The dinosaurs might simply have been fortunate. Whatever the reason, the result is clear. When the volcanic winter ends, when the skies clear and the oceans stabilize and life begins to recover, the dinosaurs are there. The Pseudosuchians are not. The Jurassic belongs to the dinosaurs. They will rule for 135 million years. They will produce the largest land animals ever to exist. They will spread across every continent, fill every terrestrial niche, evolve into forms that the Triassic could never have imagined. Tyrannosaurus and Triceratops, Brachiosaurus and Velociraptor, the great herds and the terrible hunters, all of it flows from this moment, from the end of the Triassic, from the extinction that cleared the board and let the dinosaurs inherit the Earth. The Triassic is over. It lasted 50 million years. It began in the silence after the Great Dying and ended in the fire of the camp eruptions. It saw the recovery of life from near-total annihilation. It saw the rise of the archosaurs, the conquest of land and sea and sky, the emergence of body plans that would dominate for the rest of the Mesozoic. The forests that grew back from the fungal spike are still here, though the species have changed. The oceans that were empty and toxic are full of life again. The niches that the extinction created have been filled, emptied, and filled again. The cynodonts survived too. The small, furry, nocturnal creatures that hid from the archosaurs will continue to hide, will continue to evolve, will continue to wait. Their time will come, but not for another 135 million years, not until another extinction clears another board. The Pterosaurs survived. They will grow larger in the Jurassic and Cretaceous, will produce the largest flying animals ever to exist, will rule the skies until the birds finally replace them. The Ichthyosaurs survived, though the giants did not. Smaller species will swim the Jurassic seas, will hunt fish and cephalopods, will continue the lineage for another 100 million years before fading into extinction. The story continues. The Triassic is only a chapter, but what a chapter it was. The night is quiet now. The volcanoes have stopped. The extinctions have ended. The survivors are resting, waiting for the Jurassic sun to rise on a world that belongs to them. You have traveled far, from the silence after the Great Dying to the fire of the camp eruptions, from the empty shores of Pangaea to the crowded forests of the late Triassic, from Lystrosaurus walking through ash to Plateosaurus browsing on conifers, from the first Nothosaur slipping into the water to the first Pterosaur taking to the sky. 50 million years of recovery, 50 million years of evolution, 50 million years of life finding ways to fill every available space, to exploit every available resource, to become something new. The Triassic is a story of resilience. Life was nearly destroyed and it came back. The world was broken and it healed. The niches were empty and they filled. The dinosaurs did not know they were inheriting the Earth. They were just surviving, generation by generation, the way every living thing survives. The Rauisuchians did not know their dynasty was ending. The cynodonts did not know their patience would eventually be rewarded. None of them knew anything. They lived and died and left bones in the rock for us to find. The bones tell the story. The rocks remember what the animals could not. Rest now. The Triassic is behind you. The Jurassic is ahead. A world of giants, a world of wonders, a world that grew from the seeds the Triassic planted. That is another story. Another night. Another journey through deep time. For now, the world is quiet. The great dying is over. The long recovery is complete. The dinosaurs are dreaming of a future they cannot imagine. And so can you. The Triassic will still be there in the morning. The fossils will still be waiting in the rock. The story will still be unfolding, one discovery at a time, one bone at a time, one patient scientist at a time. Sleep now. The Earth has been spinning for 4.5 billion years. It will keep spinning while you rest. The continents will drift a few more centimeters. The stars will wheel overhead. The deep time that holds the Triassic will hold you too for this small moment in the quiet dark. Good night.